Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the live series number 5 of the Citizen Economic Empowerment Law discussion. The protocol is very simple. My name is Moketsi Benedict Tegere. We're looking at 40 minutes of discussion. Generally, you are allowed to make comments in the form of chat, also in the form of Q&A. We also have a panel today, Nwako, who's actually going to be sort of our lead discussant for today. You will also be flexibly allowed to comment in the chat box, as I mentioned. This session is being recorded. 10 minutes after this session is concluded, the actual recording will be uploaded on YouTube. You can access it and share it with others. Please mute yourself once you enter the room so that others are not disturbed as we make the comments. Let me start off by saying that today's session is really focused on digital transformation and the ICT sector. It is deliberate that we have asked Nwako to be our panel today because he's actually a man who doesn't need much introduction. He's the man behind the success of the national broadband strategy that we have in Botswana. He's a man who's a champion of connectivity and access when we speak about tech in Botswana. He's also a man who's championed the roadmap that is currently looking at Botswana going the digital route. So the language that I expect today will be on mainly ICT, digital tech, and how this ICT strategy or the law is actually going to cater for the ICT startups and the ICT entrepreneurs. Nwako, I think you are not muted. At this juncture, I would like to allow you 10 minutes and we will continue with the Q&A after your presentation and your insights. So perspectively, Nwako, there's this thing called the Citizen Economic Empowerment Law that's currently being discussed. We would like your perspective. Are you for it? Does it cover what's been happening over the years? Is it coming at the right time? What's your perspective? Over to you, sir. Nwako, I just want to confirm that you are there and you have been unmuted. Okay, I think we seem to have lost Nwako. Okay, he's coming back into the room. Apologies about that. Nwako, we have you in the room. We would like to hand over to you at this point.
Hi, Tegere, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear, sir.
Okay, sorry. Apologies, I was having some issues with connecting. My Zoom has let me down on my laptop, so I've had to use my phone. So apparently I haven't heard anything that you said so that we can start properly.
Okay, I'm just gonna try to give you perspective. So I think the idea here is there is a citizen economic empowerment law that's currently in discussion. The purpose of this is not a consultation. We've been asked to correct this. This is a discussion around the current law that is actually coming from the government side. So we would like to just get perspectives, from you in terms of the ICT element to say, is it catering for what has already been put on ground to make sure the Botswana who's actually coming up with an ICT enterprise can actually benefit from this law? There are 9 guiding questions that have been provided. I don't want to mention anything about those at this juncture, but I just want to get your own perspective to say, is it the right time? And if it's the right time, is the protocol of the law going to support the ICT roadmap or the digital agenda roadmap? So over to you, sir.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Moiketi Takere, and good morning to all participants of this CE Zoom meeting. As has already been explained, my name is Nwako, and I'm going to be helping in terms of facilitating this meeting. Well, my own personal perspective around the citizen economic empowerment law that's about to be implemented is, let's start looking at a few facets first of all before we get to the law aspect. Undoubtedly, with the pandemic that has befallen the world at large, ICT, we've seen ICT get a lot of prominence in terms of countries or people needing to use ICT or tech to continuously be connected with other people, leveraging on the ability to buy services online, and with kids being able to continuously be online with school. So undoubtedly, we are going to see, even in countries such as Botswana, tech playing a totally different role, and it's being seen more as an economic driver than where in the past it was just being seen as an enabler. I mean, if you have to see at the top 20 companies that have appreciated in value, a good 80% of them are companies that are involved one way or the other with tech. So the prominence of tech is undoubted. And now, how do we bring it down to the context of Botswana? It goes without saying that in Botswana we have seen very little active, meaningful, transformational participation by the private sector in terms of paving way, in terms of coming up with new innovations, transformational technologies. We've really been seeing private companies doing the norm, being engaged in providing support that is developed by other people and by other countries. But now the importance of self-determination, that means that as Botswana, what do we need to do for ourselves? Because we can't continue relying on other people to do things for us, because everybody now is challenged. We are seeing in the West how the pandemic keeps on being on the rise, and undoubtedly it means that those countries are internally challenged themselves, and they'll always give preference and priority to their own discourse. They have real priority issues. They have to save their own people. They have to provide jobs for their own people. They have to provide relevant tech for their own people. So if we don't wake up as Botswana now and say, what can we do for ourselves, the future is going to even be worse for us. So we need to be deliberate on how do we do this as Botswana. And maybe a citizen economic empowerment law is now really more important than ever, to say how do we ensure that we do certain things and encourage them to be done by our own people, so that we can also have the ability to provide our own products and services as everybody starts looking inward to protect our own territories. Truth be told, this is going to be a world in the short term for every man for himself, God for us all. So I'm hoping that through this engagement, I don't want to really delve into what I think Tekere, because I also don't want to lead the direction of the conversation into my views. I'll share my views at the end. I would like to hear what other people think, especially around the very key contentious issues that we need to discuss, around reservations. Are there any specific things that we believe we want them to be reserved for citizens? And want us to also be bold and say what we mean by a citizen of Botswana. Is it somebody who's carrying an omang? And if it's somebody that is carrying an omang, or we've been hearing certain words that are being used around Botswana Waskei or indigenous Botswana, what does that mean? And there's the naturalized Botswana. So I really want us to be open and have that conversation and discussion, but it needs to lead to something that we can have as an input into the overall position of the private sector around citizen economic empowerment. Thanks, Moikis.
Okay, thank you very much, Nwako. For those that are just joining in, the discussion will now be opening up for comments and commentary. The idea is to get your perspective on the basis of the empowerment law. All you need to do is raise your hand. we will unmute you, or you will unmute yourself from your side if you're not muted, and you just make your comment in 30 seconds. The idea is to just get the perspectives of yourselves as citizens to say, Kenya Citizen Economic Empowerment Law, is it coming right? Has it been structured properly? Does it cater for Botswana, and so on? Right. I'm just going to also mention that please feel free to write your question in the chat box if you do not wish to raise a voice. Once you actually raise a hand, there's a button at the bottom of your screen. If you just wish to say something, you could just press that button. So maybe Nwako since a bit of perspectives on what we've had a series of these discussions since Saturday, and there's something that actually interested me. One perspective that came is that the way in which this law is coming is not proper. There's never been a private bill submitted to Parliament. So, the consultation and a discussion. Has decided and framework. So, Botswana asking, where's the background? Because this seems to be a top-down approach because it's coming from government. Shouldn't this have come from private sector itself, especially you, Nwako, because you hold a very important position at ICT. Botswana is now transitioning to the next cap, and that's the digital economy. And you know very well also, there's been some achievements, there's been some failures. Where we sit, are we able to say, if we endorse this framework, will it allow me with my e-commerce company to thrive and compete India, China in the same market? So I want you to give us perspective there so that people are reservation is the context is as young. Then the issue we mentioned is citizenship of Botswana. One of the colleagues yesterday, we've got two enemies in the room, which we don't want to acknowledge. And where I sit, I've seen it during COVID. we are seeing more of public innovation coming out to the forefront. You know, and it's very scary in a small country like this where you don't see the private sector innovation. So you are seeing more public sector innovation shining as opposed to the private sector innovations. So does this say that the smart people contributor towards the economy are sitting in government, or there's an actual war between the public sector and the private sector? So if there's that war, how do we make sure we tell neutrality the private sector ya recognize innovator developer we favor? The other issue stemmed out yesterday, we can come up with this policy, but just given the example, this one is, I'm quoting it from Reki Bini, the president of Business Botswana. He says, what Botswana can afford land go CBD, where Kahamola owns in Gati. So in as much as we have these laws, Botswana have mad, they don't have access to capital. So the first thing is, if this law was to come, we tell Nwako has this shop, but Nwako does not have affordability. But the other chairperson Umang, but can call his uncle, and his uncle can immediately give him 100 million pula, and then he's able to squash you. So in few seconds, if you 2 minutes or so before we allow the others to comment on this, so I give people perspectives as to where the direction of the discussions are at this point.
Okay, thanks, Moikit. Just to give a bit of a context, in the private sector, in our dealings with public procurement, there's always been reservations, whether it's in construction or it's in our industry, ICT. What do we mean reservation? Initially, there was a cap, a financial cap, to say that any job up to 300,000 pula should be reserved for Botswana. And then a few years ago, that was revised, and any job that up to 3 million pula should be reserved for Botswana. But this were for jobs that fell under the public procurement. And so naturally public procurement means government. And also state-owned enterprises, parastatals. Even though parastatals, we know that they don't follow that guideline or PPADB Act as they're supposed to. They do their own procurement, even though that is unlawful. But anyway, so issues of reserving things for citizens it's not new. There has been and there is still a CEE policy, which we played a meaningful part as a private sector, including ICT, in formulating. Except, a policy doesn't have an enforcement aspect to it. So, even though a policy is supposed to give guidelines, if those who have the powers to do procurement don't necessarily subscribe to what the policy was meant to do, then you won't get the policy being followed. And I think that's what happened, because we didn't see an improvement, especially in the ICT. We didn't see an improvement in terms of citizen engagements on procurement, government. So now, the big elephant in the room, as you rightfully said, is that we have an imbalance between the Botswana who have and the Botswana who don't have. So, and the Botswana who have, and this is the Botswana in terms of the Umang definition, seem to be of a different color. So it's typically your Asian, your Chinese, your white Botswana. They seem to be in a better economical position to leverage or take advantage of such type of initiatives that could be deemed to want to have a broad-based type of empowerment. So even though it is a top-down approach, I think it's coming from a good heart, from a leadership perspective, who want to genuinely see Botswana being empowered. But if we are not careful and we don't map out or find a proper way to create inclusiveness and ensure that a child in Komoka Sitwa or a child in Shakawe Gumare have the same opportunities to be empowered, like a child Omo Khaburoni coming from an advantaged background or setup. So that is always going to be the challenge. I have my views of how I think it should be done, but like I say, I don't want to influence. I'll tell you my views towards the end. But it is a challenge, that I want to pose to everyone. For how do we bridge this inequality? Because now, I wouldn't like to see us saying we are empowering Botswana, but just moving money from a few Indian or white Botswana to a few CK Botswana. It needs to be broad-based, and it needs to give everybody opportunity. And we need to see an inclusiveness type of agenda. It's very, very, very deliberate. And, maybe a score system of some sort. If you have benefited and you've gone to a certain scale, you should allow others to benefit. But hey, I think let's hear what others' views are on that, and let's have a chat. But generally, this issue of reservation it's not new. That's what I want to say. And as ICT sector, we have been very, very, very open and very forthright about it. There are certain things that have to make sure that we reserve them for Mwana Motswana. Fixing of a computer, fixing of a printer. Surely we don't need to get anybody from wherever to come and fix a computer or a printer for us, or to create a website, or to do an online form. There are certain services that need to be done by Botswana, government services that protect our sovereignty as a country. We shouldn't allow foreigners to be touching our national identity system, because this is how it happens. Or Kantele, we find people who are also not Botswana having bo mang. So we also need to have our reservations based on our identity and pride as Botswana, and that thing should really be at the fore. The self-determination. Where as Botswana we can do things for ourselves and protect and work with others to be able to grow, but it needs to come from within us, driving that, not where it's driven from outside of us and we are just spectators in our own economy.
Right.
So yeah.
Thank you very much, Nwako. I think generally I want to admit maybe Botswana really happy people, and they're not happy. Maybe that's the reason why people just generally don't want to comment. But I just want to get perspectives from the participants just on your own contribution. There we go. We have Palai. I've just unmuted you. You can go ahead. Okay, while we're waiting for you, Balai, to comment, we have unmuted you though, so you just need to press from your side. Mushango says he actually agrees entirely with Remwako's views. This should be extended to implementation. Even these concerns were addressed. I wonder if there are monitoring mechanisms in place to ensure that the law is implemented accordingly. This is always the problem. Okay, so there we go. We have just noted, Mushango, thank you for that comment. For those that are on Zoom for the first time, Zoom actually allows you to raise a hand. Then we just unmute you from this side. And then you are able, you are able to be audibly, we can hear you. Balai, just checking if we have just asked you to unmute. Balalai, Balalani, yes.
Can you hear now?
Yes, we can
Hello,
hear.
can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear
Yes. So, let me take a rider on what Neo was saying, inclusivity. If you look at our policy framework, it's largely supply driven as opposed to demand driven. Somebody comes up with policies that they think are good for Botswana, including the citizen economic empowerment. Whereas for a policy like this, you should actually start from Botswana. What do they think? And not create a framework that might not represent their true feelings. For example, if you look at policies relating to business, you will find that they are largely drawn and implemented by people who have never run businesses. So in most cases, they are totally unworkable. Like Neil was talking about the reservation policies. Has anybody tried to ask Botswana what they actually think before you set limits and all this? So I think what we need to do for Botswana to become active participant in the economy, we need to genuinely ask for their opinions as to how they wish to participate. When it comes to implementation, for example, you will find that Botswana are also left out. You find governmental agencies competing with Botswana in so many areas. You call it consultancy, financial services, I suppose even ICT to a certain extent. So at the end of the day, they feel they are part of what is happening. So we need to check the role of the state. The state should remain an enabler and not a competitor to Botswana in so many roles. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mogeti.
Maybe before you go, you know, this issue, the way in which Botswana are consulted. Can you just maybe try to advise us, Jorge, in your perspective, how do we do it? How do we do it better such that, you know, this doesn't become like what I was asked yesterday by one of our entrepreneurs. He says, I didn't know about this Zoom call. I wasn't going to know about this law. But you were going to go to some khotla and meet some old man, and he was going to say, so I think he got disconnected. Are you still there with us, sir? Nwako, we don't have a lot of questions. So, colleagues, the other thing is that I want to be deliberate about is, you know, there is open initiatives currently in place. Do you think those looking at the innovation or ICT ecosystem, once this law is actually in place, will it push the Botswana to the right level? Lunaka halebo nangati. We are speaking this practically level. We had examples of young Botswana who have developed tracing solutions, but they've had to be told, gentlemen, we cannot buy what you're doing. You have to donate. That means that you're already killing them before they start. Especially because for those that know what it takes to build ICT businesses, you literally have to depend on your intellect. So Botswana's asset the intellect. So molao o re lebeletse gore ra go digitizer, ra go nna le digital economy. Me intellect ya Motswana kana ene o re Motswana e be isa caterelwa ra kae. So I want us to think about those questions as we are responding towards this. Nwako, also the other issue that came out, maybe I'll respond this to you, ke gore hate molao o discuss with the wrong people or the wrong ministry. For example, it's coming out of the Ministry of Trade. Ba bangwe ba re nya ha se gore molao o no tshwantse gore nka bo dule ka go private sector like Repalana bua. The root point of starting, the roadmap is not correct. So how do we get to Rusiane? We parliamenting July windows we exclude more than making an inclusive grouping. We also have a comment from Bonolo. She says, indeed, government should remain an enabler and not a competitor. And again, I want to quote what another colleague said yesterday. At the BAMB in the agriculture sector, but BAMB is an agent. It's stifling productivity in the agriculture sector. So there is another evidence that came out of this to say, is this the case also by ICT? So I think at this juncture, I will maybe ask Nwako to now comment. We are looking at 7 minutes before we come to a conclusion. Please make your comments in the chat box or raise your hand before we come to a conclusion.
Okay, please do get back to Repalala. You are not unmuting him, so I think you wanted to quickly make a comment. But just to quickly say that this thing, we find parastatals to be created to address what government perceives to be, I don't know whether they perceive them to be market failures or what is really killing and crowding out private sector. You did ask me a question, like now you see Beatrice at the forefront of, is seemingly at the forefront of every technology that was supposed to help during the COVID times, from your permit system to now your contact tracing. And Botswana feel left out. They feel that they had solutions, but they had no means and no way of bringing about their solutions. So that is true. You see the parastatals, it's they are diriwa, and they compete with private sector. Your Botswana Posts of this world, to a certain extent, even your BTCs of this world, because government has a stake in there, and even certain instances, we've seen a Department of Information Technology getting a license from the regulator. You wonder what are they doing with the license when they're supposed to be hiving out jobs to Botswana, for Botswana to do jobs for them, And because we've got very little time, I would want us to try and maybe say, let's get people here to comment. What would they like to see happening? The tragedy of Botswana is that if we don't make comment and hope that we can have input, the law is going to be passed without our input in July. We'll be sad for we don't like the way it was brought about to us. We were never properly consulted. But what we have now, please, let's try and contribute and say this is our contribution and this is what we believe should be done for Botswana. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Repala, in 1 minute or so.
Yeah, I think I just wanted to respond. You asked me a question. Yeah, how should government be consulting us? Okay, on the one hand, you have bodies like Business Botswana and BEMA and so on, but they possibly represent about, let's say at best, 6,000 and enterprises. So government should be getting the information from the local authorities and so on. If the intention was to truly get the view of Botswana, there is always the assist in how government could get it. So Nekmator can answer that question, but let me let others comment.
All right. There's just another comment that, you know, parastatals were actually set up, and, you know, the idea was that they should make money. Then Gigi also says that I believe that the private sector is at the forefront when it comes to ICT, and it baffles me how such policies are made and they are not involved. That is why we have high failure rate when it comes to implementation of laws. Thank you for that, Gigi. And then another colleague talks about the issue of access to service land for business. For example, he gives an example that in Madinari, he was quoted almost 450,000 pula from BPC just to connect electricity. So I guess all he's saying here is the other issue here is just enablers that allow business to take place. So I think we only have like about 2 minutes to wrap this up. We have shared in the chat box the YouTube channel where you can get a link of this recording. So please feel free to do that. There is another session taking place at 3 p.m. We will also be sharing, you know, this report. There is a team sitting behind this recording and putting notes as you speak. We'll be sharing this with Business Botswana. So Nwako, maybe your last words in 30 seconds or so.
Okay, maybe my last word is that view now around this issue is that it is going to be very, very difficult, but we need to be still talk about it, to say that there is a Botswana who only knows Botswana and has never been a citizen of any other country. And when Botswana doesn't work for them, they have no choice. When Botswana doesn't give them opportunities, they have no choice. But you also have the other Botswana who has been a citizen of another jurisdiction, and who, when they are unhappy, they are able to pack their clothes and bags and go back to where they originally came from. And there needs to be that distinction. I don't know how, whether it is through structural system that we have in place, or it was deliberate or whatever, but the Botswana who's called Botswana Waskei seems to be disadvantaged in his own country and is unable to meaningfully participate in the economy. So we need to be deliberate how we help him. As we see, there's a high unemployment rate of young people. Despite being highly qualified, having gone to school, a lot of them are unemployed.